Hi, I'm Denise Ortiz of MindBodyHealing.biz, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for our March podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Rebecca Roseberry. She is a medical intuitive. She is a nutritionist, clairvoyant healer, and so much more. She holds a master's degree in nutrition and food science, certifications in total body modification, Akashic Field Record, Avatar Course Master Program, and she's also very well versed in contact reflex analysis and very lots of other energy medicine techniques. Basically, she is known as the health fairy, and she is my health fairy, and she's helped me many times over. And I'd like to bring in Rebecca. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. And thank you for that introduction.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about being your own healer.
Mhm.
Now, we know there's so many things going on right now with our medical system that are just too many to go into. But basically, we've been looking outside too long for answers, and we can still go there when it's needed. I'm not telling you don't go to a doctor, but before you get there, there's a lot of things you can do for yourself. Becky, tell me some of the things that you can do.
Um, let me think. So, what are some of the things that you can do to be your own healer? That's the question. Well, the first thing I would recommend for everyone is to meditate. Now, meditation can get people in a tizzy because like, well, I don't meditate and I can't sit still and like there's a lot of resistance to it. But that's one of the reasons why I make jewelry, because that is a meditation. You can make a meditation out of washing the dishes.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be this big thing. But to meditate is important because we get out of the monkey mind. The mind is, I think, what brings us all down at one time or another. Because of it's not this part of us has too much power and too much focus. The mind is a tool and it's a part of us, but it should not be, the heart should not be overridden by the mind. And there's a lot more I could say about that. So, meditation, even if you were to take a walk every day or take a hot bath and read a book, just something to
Mhm.
calm the nervous system down and stay in a place of calm and ease and peace would do wonders for all of us.
That makes sense because I know I do that myself. I am not a good meditator, even though I'm a hypnotherapist and I can take people into those zony places. Very often I find my meditation doing things like dancing or
Mhm.
just looking out into the backyard. Simple things, right? I mean, we don't have to overthink it. And you're right. Our minds have been told everything we have to do, we have to think about, we have to figure out, and it's not true. And that's why
Right.
they're coming up with like heart coherence and things like that, right? Just to show
Mhm.
you to trust your gut, trust your heart. That's where everything's coming from, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I think if we, I think the mind, if we can quiet it down and do activities that keep it quiet and we don't identify with it, meaning it's just a tool, it's not who we are.
Mhm.
And because collectively we have over-identified with the mind, and that's what's got us into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So when you're, and I love this idea of, like I used making jewelry as an example, whatever your hobby is, when you're in a zone, right? When you're in that zone, the mind just shuts off and you enter a state of oneness. And oneness to me is the be all end all. That's where you become one with the activity and you don't even recognize where you begin and end. And there's no more judgments, no more criticisms, no more, what do I got to do later? Like you're in it. And
Hmm.
when you're in it, what that means is you're present. And the more that we practice being present with ourselves, um, the more power we have. And when you have more power, your body can heal itself, right?
Yeah.
When you're in your head, you're taking power outside of yourself or distracting yourself when I guess what I'm saying is I'm thinking of what Carolyn Mace was teaching about. She always teaches about that, wake up every morning and use the analogy of everyone gets $100 to spend that day, everyone. And by the end of the day, you want to make sure you've spent it all, but not that you're in a deficit, right?
Right.
But I see that if you're being dominated by the quote unquote monkey minds, that you're losing power. And power is what you don't want to lose, because power is what you need to keep the body healthy and strong.
Yeah, you need that energy coming in all the time. That's why we should be
Yeah.
doing things like grounding, getting
Yeah.
the power and energy from the earth coming up through our feet.
Hmm.
And like I like what you said too, with not being in the present moment, because we all too often think all about the things in the past. What did I do wrong yesterday? What could I have I done if
Hmm.
only I had? And it doesn't matter because that's already gone. And the
Yeah.
future, worrying about that doesn't do us any good because we just tend to worry about it and we're planning too much and we're missing
Hmm.
what's happening in the moment. There was a great picture I saw quite a while back of a large event going on. Maybe the Pope was coming through or some major star, and everyone had their cameras out and they're just taking pictures with their phone and videos. And this one older woman was just standing there watching it,
Hmm.
being in the moment with us.
Right.
Not, I need to save this for later. I'm going to look at this down the line.
Right.
I don't want to miss it. They missed it because they weren't actually experiencing it in the moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the present moment, the now, is synonymous to me, synonymous with heaven. And I think we are all looking to get to heaven while being in the physical body. To me, that's
Mhm.
the be all end all, is to experience that on earth. And you do that when you are not fixating on the past or the future, when you're fully here.
Right, right. Now, I know some of the things that you've taught me in the past that I want to share with other people, and you could just go on with further explanation. But one of the things we think about is when we're sick, how did we get sick? Take a basic cold, for example. Okay, you've got a little cold coming on. How did it start? It starts further out. Maybe there was something that was a dis-ease. There
Mhm.
was not an ease in your body. It was upset, it was bothered. But it doesn't just start in the body, it starts even further out through the
Right.
emotions. And if you explain a little bit about that.
Sure, sure. So you're talking about my happy place. So my
Yeah.
happy place, my happy place is in the ethers. It's in the non-physical realm. It's the very few people can see it, but we can sense it. And that's another good reason to be in a state of meditation, is because you can have access to it, or have greater access to it. The ethers is, the way I describe it is, um, the carries all of the potential of us. It is us in the non-physical realm, but it's still us. And before, like, if we look at, I'm trying to think of how I want to explain this to everybody, but the physical body is what Carolyn Mace describes as the caboose on the train, which
Mhm.
seems incorrect, but it's actually correct, that when you have a cold, it's actually, there was a lot of setup in the non-physical for it to then become a physical manifestation. So this is why I don't subscribe to conventional medicine, because it's like damage control.
Mhm.
When we can go into the ethers and we can go into the aura of the person, like I assess people's hologram, which is simply the power that they're emanating, that we can't see, that they're surrounded by, and surrounded is not the right word, but the part of the greater part of them.
Mhm.
And by accessing that, we could see the trail of why someone would have a breakdown or quote unquote disease by going there first, because that's where it did start. But you have to have the awareness to do that and the capacity to do that. And that's what I offer in sessions. And that's what I recommend, because that's where your power is. You want to know Another way of describing it, the non-physical realm is that of the unconscious mind.
Mhm.
And that's another strange concept, right? Like
Yeah.
what we perceive as reality is only a small piece. There's a lot more going on that we, is subconscious, let's say, or hidden. And it actually, let's say it's about 80 to 90% of our actual reality. Um, not again, this it sounds so crazy because it's like, what do you mean I'm not conscious? What do you mean I'm not aware? Right? It's like I am all, like it
Yep.
may sound condescending, but there's actually more to us that is untouched, I guess, or the more that we have access to that realm, that part of us, the
Right.
better off and the more power we'll have.
Yep. And like you said, in explaining it, there was something great that I saw years ago on Nat Geo. And they talked about just how much we actually perceive what
Hmm.
we actually see in any given moment. And they did a very simple test with people in an audience in a small theater atmosphere. They had people in red suits jumping into blue circles and blue suits jumping into red circles. And they told everyone to count how many times the blue jumped into red and the red jumped into blue. And they were all very highly concentrated on this, using their mind to watch exactly what was going on and keep track of it. And when they were all done, they asked everyone, how many of you saw the gorilla in the background walking past? And everyone said, what do you mean? And they showed them the video. They were so concentrated on what was going on, they missed a gorilla costumed person walking
Hmm.
right
Hmm.
in back of everything because they were not focused. Because sometimes our brains can only focus on limited things at the time, but doesn't mean that there's not a lot more going on in the
Yeah.
background that we're not aware of. But our conscious mind does it. Like when they hypnotize someone from witnessing a crime or an accident, and they will hypnotize them and they'll be able to bring up things from their unconscious or their subconscious mind
Yeah.
that they were consciously aware of. It would probably be information overload for what our brains could handle at any one time.
Right. Right. I'm trying to think of I'm thinking of another example. Uh there is this phrase that I use a lot, like the creator of all that is, like describing God, which frankly cannot be described. But anyway, so creator of all that is, when you get into the more that you can get into the all that is, meaning like a whole 360-degree viewpoint, you have a better perspective of what's actually going on, what reality actually is. We get into trouble when we have a narrow focus on something because it's just a
Mhm.
small viewpoint and it's not the totality of what's actually going on. And that narrow viewpoint will trip us up, and that could end up in a sickness of some kind. So,
Right.
meditation too helps to, when you look at it from that perspective, you're broadening your perspective. So, I have people do this all the time, and I do this all the time, like just to like I just like I said, I play in the ethers. Like, so what I'll recommend to people is imagine that you are being what Dr. Wayne Dyer taught was to be a compassionate witness to your own existence. So picture that there's a perspective outside of yourself that is looking upon you, and now you can imagine that as your higher self, an angel, or whatever. But the point is that that viewpoint helps. Like my system immediately shifts if you want to try it. Like just picture, like you're being watched by an angel,
Mhm.
and I feel calmer immediately, and I feel at peace. I feel at home. It's such a strange concept, but it helps to, when you expand your perception, you get a better lens of what is actually true. And the more truth that you're operating from, the healthier you'll be. I
Right.
know it sounds okay. So just like expand your consciousness. It actually helps your health. That's why I talk about consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the more that we're aware of what's going on around us and within our sphere of
Hmm.
energy and being, because sometimes we put those things aside. Like, I know, like, say, for example, if I was, feeling uncomfortable and diseased, there may have been something that caused that in the past day, hours, weeks, whatever, that was bothering me or bugging me and getting to me that maybe I chose not to deal with or leave it out there. I wasn't even recognizing it.
Mm,
And somehow my subconscious or my body knows, Denise, this is not you. Maybe I was getting angry at someone and it's because they were in a bad place and I didn't like the way they were acting, so I was getting angry with them. So that anger starts to manifest in my body and sets me out of my point of ease, where the dis-ease comes in.
right.
And then it says, okay, you're not happy with that, and you're getting angrier, and the body is getting more and more tense and bothered because it's not in the natural good state it should be in.
Yeah.
And then that can bring in the illness. Would that be a good way to describe it, maybe?
Yeah, no, that's good. And so I would suggest to, in a situation like that, you could immediately go into prayer and ask for forget, or I would just say, I forgive you, maybe like
Mhm.
200 times, whatever, until you feel better. Meaning forgive that person, forgive yourself, forgive the energy, because in that scenario that you just mentioned, you're actually, or this person is actually agreeing with anger. So now you're vibrating at that level.
Mm.
Um, so which we call agreement, right? So
Right.
we don't want to keep agreeing with anger. It's a low vibration. So by forgiving it, you can raise your vibration and move that energy. That's just one
Yeah.
example off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we take the time to really center ourselves through meditation,
Mhm.
quiet stillness, we can try to see where we're feeling the discomforts and then deal with them, like you said, through forgiveness. The Honopono, I forgot all
Yeah.
the words, but it's, I love you, I forgive you, thank you. I know there was another one in there, but
Yeah.
it's true. If we can let go of what is happening, then it will help keep us healthier. And also,
Yeah.
how about the positive things that we can say? Usually they go, oh, just saying positive words doesn't do it all. But words do have some power on us for what we associate those words with, right? So we can even say things to ourselves. Today, I'll be healthier. Today, I will feel better. Um, there was a great song that someone did years ago. It was to a song, a children's rhyme, and the words that they used was, every little cell in my body is happy, every little cell in my body is well. And singing that over and over. And they used to teach that to kids in kindergarten to sing. And when they were doing it, it just made their body feel better. It made them happier. It just triggered all of the things that will make our body feel at ease, happy, and comfortable just by saying words or singing in tones or even smiling, you know? So those things can have a large effect as well, right? Just what we hear and what we tell ourselves, right?
Oh yeah, what we tell ourselves for sure. But there's still the unconscious mind that be playing a different song than the conscious mind. So you
Hmm.
want to get the unconscious mind on board with that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I know that you've talked about just balancing the body and the mind and knowing that things are coming, like you said, from out in the ethers.
Hmm.
Once it's out there, that discomfort, that disease comes into the emotional body. And that's where we start to think or feel with our gut something's not right, some things are not right. And that's when we tend to push off. Oh, that's no big deal. Don't worry about that. Let it go. And instead, when we start feeling that in our gut and in our heart, that's when we should be paying attention most of all of, why am I being made aware of it? It started in the ethers and now it's coming into the emotional body, right?
Hmm.
So how can we better handle that part of it from there?
Well, okay. So, if that occurs, what I would do is something like the emotional freedom technique.
Hmm.
I would want to get really clear, again, meditation, to tune in. I tune in and start doing a lot of detective work. I'll ask, what is this energy? Where did it come from? And so on. And I'll probably most often not only get a sensation, but words will come to me, where I'll get a message, as to what it is, and then I'll maybe use the emotional freedom technique, or it might just heal all on its own just by having the awareness of what it actually was.
Hmm.
But I wanted to point out something that I learned from Eckhart Tolle, um, is I don't even, was it Eckhart Tolle? But it's this, no, I might be confusing it with another consciousness book I had read. But the message is just notice. Okay, so like this feeling that you're talking about. Okay.
Hmm.
Describe it without judgment and without identification. Like start to tune into what is it feeling like? So it feels yucky, let's say. It feels yucky. Okay. There's no identification to it. What people get, they heap problems on themselves by calling it mine, by saying
Oh.
I am. It's like, what are you doing? When you try to catch yourself when you do so many people do this. This is what's problematic is the over identification. Again, we talked about the over identification with the mind, and now over identification with symptoms and
Mm.
feelings and sensations. Like, so get very, very objective and like just notice, like it feels, you could say painful, whatever feels true.
Hmm.
And just like you're exploring through, a new planet, when you're just like noticing it very objectively like a scientist.
Hmm.
Um, If you wanted to utilize the emotional freedom technique, that would be tapping. You would say something like, even though I feel this yucky feeling in my stomach, I love and accept myself.
Mm.
So there's many different tools and ways to do it, but all in all, it is about forgiveness and awareness. Letting go, I have found personally, like that phrase, my ego cannot stand that phrase, letting go. I would sit there and be like, what do I have to let go of? Or like I would start arguing, like, what do you mean let go? What does that mean? So I prefer to use the word forgive, and forgiveness is that of giving back your power back to yourself. So
Mm.
when you say something like, when you're projecting or when you're over identifying, that's a way of giving your power away. Like when you're saying, oh, I have this or I have that, you're giving your power away.
Hmm.
So being objective will help in the healing process.
Right, right. I mean, that sounds awesome.
Hmm.
That's a similar technique I use when I do hypnosis and I have people go outside of themselves or above themselves, or just
Yeah,
imagine them looking at a TV screen. So, like you said, this way you're looking at it objectively. Look over there and what do you see? Don't
yeah,
identify with it, just observe. Don't absorb it, just observe it, right? And
right.
see what's going on out there to keep it out there without it coming in more. And you don't have to own it because it's not yours.
Right, right. The stories that we tell ourselves can be beneficial or unbeneficial. So,
Mm.
how are you speaking about this thing is very important.
Right, right.
Mhm.
And then there's other ways we can identify then once it starts coming into the physical. So if it's different things that are happening, like for example, for me, so I use my voice for a podcast and for hypnosis and for singing and speaking. So I have been told sometimes when my voice is out, it's not just something that's here physically that's happening. It can be something more of, I'm afraid to speak my truth,
Right,
or I'm holding back,
right,
and things
right.
like that that you can associate with what's going on physically. And Louise Hay does a lot about that with Heal Yourself book.
Yeah,
And she talks about even, just realizing what are the things that may emotionally that you haven't caught yet are actually doing it. So if the throat is the problem, what are you not saying? What are you not speaking? What are you not letting out? Um, if the fingers are having problems, you can look up what finger is reacting to what stimulus that's going on in your life and see if that changes and you recite certain mantras, how you can help to heal before you even get to the doctors, because many times there's, long waits to see a doctor. And when they do, they've got to send you out for tests, and then they've got to send you out for this other things. And I've done it myself where I've said, no, no, I've already got that under control and I don't need to go back. So people
Yeah.
need to learn that this is possible. This is real. You're in charge of your body and the emotions and the ethers and the spirit, which is all of what we're made of, making them work together to make your body heal, because our body was set up to heal itself, right? I mean, we've learned it from so many masters throughout the beginning of time. Even Jesus talked about how to heal yourself, and instead they said, no, no, it was only him that could do it. But he was showing us how to do it while we're in human form. And
Hmm.
we forget about that part of the equation, that we have the ability to help to heal ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, you said something like we're in charge. That was awesome. Yeah, we're in charge of our healing. And this is why it's like a paradox that I'm a healer and yet I just want everyone to heal themselves. I'm not really healing anyone. I'd like to see myself more as a guide
Mhm.
so that, to empower others because the power has to come from within. And, that's person specific. I can't do it for somebody, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, no, I love that. You're in charge. One of the issues, one of the many, many, many issues that I have with conventional medicine is by the time you've gotten your test results, your physiology could have miraculously healed. By the
Mhm.
time you could be looking at results and it's of the past,
Yes.
literally, and it's like, okay, this isn't relevant anymore. This
Mhm.
is not who I am. Like it drives me nuts.
Yeah. And the way we say, well, we had this for a long time. I had this when I was little, so I still have it now. But yet, science has already proven to us that everything changes in our body. Our skin changes, our cells change. Every so many years, it regrows new. So it may not be holding on to it, but our mind is holding on to it.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
when people have limbs removed, we've heard of those stories with soldiers and stuff where they feel phantom pain from a leg that's no longer there.
Hmm.
So it shows you how powerful our minds can be about holding on to a sickness or an illness or a pain when it's actually not physically there anymore. But
Yeah.
our emotions are holding on to it. And that's also sometimes why we hold on to other illnesses. Well, if I have this illness, I'll never be asked to go out and play soccer because my knee is always going to hurt. So there, you can't ask me anymore. It's an easy way to let yourself out of it rather than say, I hate soccer. I don't want to play it. So
Right.
instead, we can blame it on something.
So that's a great example because you're hitting on something about power again, right? Like in that scenario, that person didn't feel that they could honestly say, no, I'm not interested in soccer. Like no, thank you. They instead would have to have created an illness as an excuse because they couldn't hold
Mhm.
their own power and be honest and say, this really doesn't interest me. I'm not playing,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. A funny story, made me think, there was, this was a very long time ago, and my mother was sitting in bed and she was complaining about her knee hurting. And I decided to tune into her knee and get the real story. This is so funny. Right in front of her, I'm like, you know what? Let me check the ethers. I'm not, let's get some more data. Sure enough, I'm like, you created this knee problem because you want dad to clean the house for you or something like that. It was like you want him to do it for you. And she starts laughing. And I'm like, you could have just been honest. You could have just sat on the bed and said, you know what, I'm not doing this right now, or had the power to just be true, right? But instead she had to
Right.
do this, she had to create this sense of powerlessness because of, not being able to, confront the real issue. It was so funny. And when she started laughing, I'm like, oh,
You,
I
you,
I
you
just
got
spoke
her.
the truth. I got her.
You got her. You called her out on her.
And so, I really commend everyone that works with me because you can't bullshit me. because I'm tuning into the real issues, and it's like the stuff that we want to hide and put in a closet. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to get into a session with me for that reason, because it's like you really got to own your stuff. You really do.
Mhm. You do. You do.
It's difficult even for me. I'm like, I don't have it all figured out yet. Anyway. So just wanted
Yeah.
to share that.
That's great. That's great. I know, like I was working with my dad recently, helping him through some things, and they said, "Oh, your blood sugars are way too high, and you've got to be careful." So he just says, "Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that," but then he'll go out and do whatever he wants anyway. So I tried to find a way that he could kind of live with it, and the doctor helped him along and said, "Why don't you try doing this then?" Instead of just saying, yes, I'm going to do it, and you're lying to yourself, and then you're going and having all the sugar you could get your hands on, try taking your blood test. Just do the prick, see how your blood sugar is. Okay. If it's a little high, try to, instead of having that whole bowl of ice cream, have a small bit and see how it reacts, and then check your blood afterwards. A small bit that day, you're fine. But
Mhm.
every day before you do a check, if it's way high, no sugar for right now. But
Yeah,
maybe if you keep it there, maybe later on you can have a little bit.
yeah.
And this is what we don't often give, we don't allow ourselves those little extras because nobody is perfect. My husband is very disciplined, me, not so much, depending.
Mhm.
But I know that about myself. So I have set things up so I don't criticize myself for failing or not doing what I need to do to keep myself healthy and say,
Right,
well, everything in moderation.
right.
Keeping a moderation is also another way we can keep ourselves healthy without the all or nothing or the giving up stage. And if you've done something that maybe you're not supposed to be doing for your health, well, the minute you realize it, change it in that moment. Take something that could counteract it, perhaps. And just staying, again, like you said in the very beginning, being aware. How do
Mhm.
you feel?
Mhm. Mhm.
We sometimes think, well, the doctor told me. Well, what do you tell you? You know when you're not feeling good. I know when I'm feeling bloated. I'm like, oh, I know why. Oh my gosh. I had that beer that makes me feel bloated up. I can't have that kind anymore. Let me have something different or something completely, go to wine or just have water. Um, and just really pay attention to how each thing that we're putting into our body
Mhm.
is not just mentally, but it's also physically, and how that's affecting our body while we're eating it. Craving it. Cravings usually mean you're probably getting too much of it, correct? You keep craving something that you really shouldn't be having, and breaking that cycle seems hard to do. Replace it with something similar and bring it down. If it's
Yeah.
lots of sugar, a little less sugar, a little less sugar till you're finally sugar free, but you're still getting that cookie. Because if nobody told you it was sugar free, you'd be eating it anyway. So we have to find balances when we're feeling, some people are very strong and very disciplined. And if you're not, maybe just finding some things like that could help you along and help you through,
Mhm.
right? Um, so basically, if you were to wrap up, the easiest way, or maybe not easy, but the best way to
Mhm.
try to help keep your health in check and in balance, what would you suggest?
Um, Practice saying I love you to yourself in your mind all day long.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Because if you love
Similar,
yourself, you're going to
yeah,
treat
it's
yourself well.
right. It's similar to I forgive you, but if you were to actually emanate, I mean that's the whole point of being on earth in the first place is we're learning love.
Mhm.
So practice being that every day. If that means you have to say I love you 1,000 times, then do that. But that is your medicine. That's everyone's medicine is self-love.
Right. And then a
Mhm.
lot of us don't have enough of that. So by saying it every day and getting that mind and the subconscious mind and the entire body to hear it on a regular basis would help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah, so and to wrap it up, I would definitely say that just to comment on what you said earlier, another key thing concept is balance. So I teach that as well. When you're talking about eating cookies and um junk food and whatever, stay in balance with it. So what I do is I recommend, eat the cookie, say something kind and compliment yourself about it rather than, oh, I shouldn't be eating it. Don't condemn yourself, right? That's
Right.
not loving.
Yeah.
So be mindful of how you're speaking to yourself. Balance is, I guess, how would I explain balance? Balance would be, I think I'm getting into some waxing here about balance. Balance is probably elusive in and of itself.
Yeah.
Just to move into oneness and be okay with all that is all you really need. It is what it is. It's
Yeah.
okay. Eat the cookie. It's okay. Oh, my tummy doesn't hurt now. It's okay.
Yeah.
Be okay with it. It's okay. It's okay. So yes, practice saying I love you and practice being aware and becoming conscious of the stories that you're telling yourself throughout the day.
Mm.
I
Yes.
think that would be very powerful if we all noticed, wow, I just said something really nasty to myself. That's not good. And then catch it and flip it.
Yes. Yes. Especially when you start off with negatives. And as you're saying this, I used to catch my niece and try to train her this way when she was very young. She says, well, I can't do that. I say that again. Well, I can't do that right now, but I'm going to be getting better at it.
Nice, nice.
So like you said, just add to it. Make it a positive, turn it around, make it work for you.
Yeah, now you have a powerful statement that you just made, and health is all about power, right? The
Yeah.
amount of power we have. So don't give
Yeah.
your power away to negativity and hateful thoughts about yourself. Just keep being positive.
Yeah. And just keep remembering too that the energy is just fuel for the body.
Yeah.
It's fuel.
Yeah.
And you need to have it coming in. And even that's why, I mean, years ago, you used to say a prayer before you ate, so you could still do things like that. Bless the food, give a positive energy toward the
Yeah.
food. That I want this food to go to all the right places. And I want
Yeah.
it to taste good and I want it to heal me. And as you're having things that are healing you, and, just keep that all in mind. Keep talking to yourself like this. Our self talk is one of our best allies and our worst enemies. So choose which way you want to use it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, Becky, I'd like to thank you so very much for joining me today. And if you'd like to learn more about Rebecca Roseberry, there'll be information about how you can reach her and make appointments with her. She also has a book and podcasts and YouTubes and lots of information. So if you want to keep yourself healthy and just kind of be your own healer, you could learn a lot from her. So check out the information at the end of the video. And in the meantime, I'd also like to thank everyone who's tuning into this podcast. I'll continue to bring good information to help you in your everyday life, to help you get these crazy, tumultuous times that we're going through, and just to help find places where you can learn things, where you can investigate more, and learn to help yourself. Okay, and my name again is Denise Ortiz of mindbodyhealing.biz. Thank you, and please be safe, be healthy, and be you. Bye bye now.